Hello, guys. Here, Eduardo again from Unite 2016, and this time I have the pleasure to talk to Lucas Meijer, Unity's technical director. And Lucas, I would like to know more about like Smart Sprite. You mentioned it in Unite 2015, but I haven't heard anything about that lately. So, how's the status of that project so far?
So, the 2D team is working on a whole set of 2D features. Actually, if you go to unity3d.com/experimental, you can find like the latest bits from the 2D team where they have like the tile map. Like I demoed some of that stuff, like the tile map, the Smart Sprite, and some other things. I think the experimental build actually has all these features. I'm not 100% sure about the Smart Sprite, but I think it also has the Smart Sprite. And it's the reason you haven't heard so much about it is sort of coupled to some of the changes we've made that John mentioned in the keynote. We're trying to change our process that when we develop a feature, we kind of share it with people way earlier, but we take more time before we actually land it in the product. It turns out that we just need more time than we've taken in the past between real people using it and it becoming good enough that that you can be really proud of it. So the 2D features have been going through this process for a long time where they've been in an experimental build and they're getting more and more polished. I must say, I don't know off the top of my head what the estimated sort of ship time is for them to land in the main line, but you can see what the status is and download the bits and try out all the stuff that I demoed back, I don't think, Vancouver maybe, to see where it's at. And I'm sure also on the forum there they'll be able to give some indication of when which features would hit the main line.
Cool. I think that's good to catch up. But going to the announcement that you did in the keynote today, so it seems like Unity is looking toward like movies in instead of that only focusing on game development, looking more onto the movies field because you're improving the graphics and like including some of the tools from movie makers now in Unity. So what can you say about that?
Well, so that's not really our intention. So our core focus is games. It's all about games. And we want to make game development better. And we want to do so by looking at what our friends from the movie industry have been doing, because in some ways they're quite ahead of us. So we take inspiration from that to make game development better. That said, getting all these tools and especially the timeline, like we do get a lot of questions on, what about non-games, what about movies, and this is why we've also announced the Otoy partnership, because offline rendering is not really our at the core of our business, but we do it's hard, but we do think it's really cool. But you can only focus on so many things at a time. So that's where Oto partnership comes in really well, because they're experts in doing the offline stuff and all the tools. You kind of need that for both movies and for games. But our focus at Unity for content creation is primarily games, and all my mentions of the movie industry that we did in the keynote, that's mostly due to just steal their tools so that game people can have them too.
Okay, awesome. So another thing that impressed me in the keynote was that you're optimizing the game engine. So now, it's gonna be. You will have more frames per second, and that way it's going to be a lot easier to implement VR applications and mobile applications. Is there, could you tell us a little bit more about, what are the Unity plans on that?
I mean, so, everyone needs performance. Whether you do a 2D title, 3D title, VR, non-VR, mobile, PlayStation, every developer wants performance. So performance is something that we are just constantly working on and improving. And if you've seen Joachim's part from the keynote, he went through some of the transitions that the Unity engine internally has made. to, just as any engine not written in the last 2 years has to, everyone needs to go through this phase where you primarily were a single-threaded engine before, and you just make a player loop and you call all your stuff, and now suddenly processors don't get faster and you have all these different cores and you can use them, but you have all these challenges of sharing data and races. So like we've gotten really far right now in Unity to what we call jobify or subsystems. It's the ability to split up the task that needs to happen for a certain frame in a bunch of discrete, individually executable jobs, so that you can batch them out to all these different threads.
Prioritize depending on.
Right, and then then we have a job queue that just goes through all these jobs, and like if you do it smart, you schedule jobs early and you require them late in the frame. That will give the scheduler the most flexibility to sort of like fill in all the gaps that it has, and it takes quite some time to convert a traditional system to a system that's able to cut up all its work in these chunk-sized jobs. But the work on our end is really far right now. So what Joachim showed is that we're going to actually support creating jobs from C#, so that when you have game code, for instance, that's very intense, like the Boyd simulation that we showed. That was 20,000 fish doing avoidance. Each fish does avoidance of all the other 20,000 fish. So that's like 20. Like, do the math on that. It's a ton of math. It's a ton of math. And if you were to do that single threaded, you would die. And it's a good example of us opening up the job system in a way that also your game code, which currently in Unity, will typically only run on the game thread, while our subsystems are using the other threads. With the new C# job system, you'll be able to also take your performance-intensive game code and make that run on multiple threads as well, because... Sorry, I get excited when I talk about this. So you can already do some of this today by just spawning multiple threads yourself. But the problem with doing that is that you need to wait for all your jobs to finish, and only then Unity will start again. The benefit of using the new job system is that you can kick off C# jobs, and they won't run yet. And then when, for instance, our physics simulation starts running, like your C# code will be able to run in parallel with our C++ code from other subsystems. So the same rule applies. You schedule your job early, you require the results late. And it's a bit sad that Joe in his presentation he didn't show the profiler view, but it's a beautiful sight. You have like all these processors, and like they're all filled with these reasonably granular jobs, and where typically if you look at Unity from a few versions ago and you look in the profiler, you see all these subsystems and they use all processors, but we won't start the next subsystem until all the jobs from the previous subsystems were done. So you had these vertical bars that were all filled up, and then physics does a few things, and then the particle system starts, and that one goes wide again. But now these jobs are able to flow from subsystem to subsystem, which will result in much better core utilization all over. But yeah, so as you notice, performance is a very long answer to your question. Performance is something that we care about a lot and that everyone needs, and we're actually really proud of the performance improvements that we've been doing over the last few versions, and we have a few more things coming in this area that I'm not going to unveil yet, but this is not the end of this road when it comes to performance improvements.
Awesome. Well, guys, there you go. That was Lucas Meijer, Unity's technical director. So until the next one, see you.